The tea hits skin before anyone understands what's happening. A small, sharp hiss leaves the older woman's lips as the jasmine burns across the thin, pale vein at her wrist, and the entire table goes quiet. Crystal stems freeze halfway to painted mouths. A violin bow slips, the note snapping in the background like a warning. Tanisha jerks back, tray wobbling in her hands. Oh my God! The cup rattles in the saucer, porcelain against porcelain, loud enough to slice through the low conversations. A drop of amber tea slides down the white tablecloth, staining it like a slow, spreading bruise. The woman doesn't move. She just stares at the cooling liquid on her skin, then lifts her eyes, calm and steady, to the young black waitress standing over her. The manager is already turning, watching from near the bar. Two men in tailored suits lean in, whispering. Someone at a nearby table mutters that this is table 9, that this is the Seo reservation, that this girl has no idea whose wrist she just burned. Tanisha feels every gaze pressing into her like heat lamps, and something tight in her chest snaps. You could say thank you, you know, she says, voice low but clear enough to carry. I'm trying my best here. A man at table 6 chokes on a laugh. Another guest sucks in a breath. The older woman's expression does not change. Her hair is pinned back in a perfect silver knot, her dress simple but too fine for the room, the kind of quiet that signals old money and older power. When she finally speaks, it's almost soft. You should learn when silence protects you. That calm cuts deeper than any shout. Tanisha feels her jaw clench. All day it's been like this, rich folks snapping fingers, waving her off, talking over her like she's furniture with legs. Her rent is late. Her brother is on the edge of getting kicked out again. Her feet ache inside cheap black flats. She stares at this woman who won't even look at her burn mark, won't even acknowledge the accident, and something reckless in her refuses to fold. And you should learn when to show respect, she answers. The violin stops. Even the ice in the bar glasses seems to quit shifting. For a heartbeat, the velvet bow holds its breath. Lady Seo-Hwa, because that's the name someone hisses, barely above a whisper, tilts her head. No anger. No shock. Just that same unreadable calm, like a judge who has already made up her mind. Tanisha's fingers shake around the water carafe. She hears her own pulse in her ears, feels the warning in the room, but pride pushes past the fear. She tips the carafe and lets a few drops of cold water fall into the untouched tea. The tiny splash sounds louder than the music ever did. There, she says, throat tight but words steady. Now it matches your taste. Chairs creak as people shift away, as if distance could keep them safe from whatever comes next. At the bar, the manager takes one step forward and then stops, eyes sliding to the corner of the room. Near the back, alone at a small table, a man in a dark suit sets down his glass. His gaze lifts, slow and assessing, locking onto the scene at table 9. His eyes track from the old woman's wrist to the trembling carafe to the defiant set of Tanisha's shoulders. He does not shout. He does not stand. He just watches, one hand resting lightly on the edge of his glass, thumb circling the rim as if he's tracing out the shape of a decision. A server passing by sees him and goes pale. Someone whispers a name, Kian Seo. The architect. The man nobody ever wants to notice them. Tonight, he is looking only at Tanisha. For a second, their eyes almost meet across the room. She feels it, that weight, the sudden chill that crawls up her spine, even if she can't quite place its source. But before she can turn her head, the older woman gives a small nod to her son. No words. No gesture. Just a glance that says everything in a language only their family seems to know. Tanisha stands there, stuck between apology and anger, fingers slick against the cool glass. She has no idea that in this frozen moment, her whole life is being pushed onto a different track by a man she hasn't even spoken to yet. She only knows she's tired of being stepped on, and finally chose to step back. That choice hums in the air like a live wire. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and really I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Then Kian does the strangest thing. Instead of calling the manager over, instead of signaling the quiet men near the door who always seem to be there but never really are, he smiles. Just a flicker at the edge of his mouth, gone almost as soon as it appears. He lifts his glass to his lips and takes a slow drink, as if all he has witnessed is a mildly interesting scene in a play he helped fund. Tanisha has no idea what that tiny smile truly means. She doesn't know what this room already knows, that this is the man behind shell companies and shell faces, the one who moves money and fear without leaving fingerprints. She just feels a strange mix of relief and confusion as the manager finally rushes over, apologizing to Lady Seo-Hwa, promising a fresh tea, a new server, anything to smooth the surface back down. But the surface is already cracked. The older woman watches Tanisha with that same quiet stare, and under the table, her hand rests where the tea touched, as if memorizing the pain. Tanisha turns away, trying to steady the tray in her hands, trying to pretend this was just another bad moment in a long string of them. She doesn't see that Kian is still watching her, that he has already made a choice. Later, people will swear they felt it in the air right then, that shift, that click, like a lock turning. They'll talk about how a young waitress at the Velvet Bow broke the unspoken rule and walked away still breathing. They'll wonder how she managed it. Tanisha, wiping sweat from her upper lip and rushing to her next table, doesn't know she has just stepped into someone else's design. She doesn't hear the quiet thought forming behind Kian's eyes. This one is different. He lets her walk out of that room without a word. No warning. No threat. Only that tiny, secret smile as he watches her move between the tables, already rearranging the pieces of a life she thinks still belongs to her. She has no idea that the man who watched her break the rules is the same man who, by sunrise, will start rewriting every rule around her. If you were standing in the Velvet Bow that night, would you have backed Tanisha's stand for respect? Or walked away from table 9 the second you heard the name Seo? The bank app shows numbers she has never seen next to her own name. Zeros stacked neatly on the screen, like they belong to someone else's life. Tanisha sits on the edge of her thin mattress, phone in one hand, the other pressed flat to her chest as if her heart might jump out. $10,000 sitting in her account with no sender she recognizes, just a note. Employee appreciation. The first thing she does is double-check it isn't some cruel mistake. She calls the bank. They confirm the transfer. She calls the Velvet Bow. The manager dodges her question with a tight, fake laugh and tells her to just be grateful the right people noticed her hard work. Her mind flashes back to hot tea, to a calm morning, to a man's faint smile over a drink in the dark corner of the club. She hangs up, fingers trembling. Rent gets paid in one clean swipe, the landlord's tone flipping from sharp to sweet in a single phone call. The light bill that's been threatening to shut them down disappears. Her little brother Jamal, who's been hanging by a thread at community college, stares at the balance she covers for his next term and looks like he might actually cry. Where you even get this kind of money? He asks. She jokes it's back pay from the universe, nothing more. The universe seems eager to keep giving. Within a week, her phone is a different kind of loud. A friend tags her in a photo from a staff party, and it somehow reaches a local photographer who DMs her about a small paid shoot. An event planner emails, saying she has the kind of presence that works well in high-end spaces, offers her a generous rate to host and greet guests. A fashion startup drops into her inbox promising free clothes in exchange for visibility. At first it feels like coincidence, a lucky break finally landing on someone who has earned it 3 times over. But then she starts noticing the details. The photographer has only luxury clients. The event is at a building she's sure she saw on a list of Seo-owned properties in some gossip piece at the salon. The fashion brand's founder follows just a handful of accounts, most of them tied to private investment firms with names she can't pronounce. The pattern creeps in around the edges of her good fortune. She starts turning her phone face down at night, telling herself she's too tired to think too hard about it. When Jamal jokes about her being sponsored by some mystery sugar daddy, she snaps at him harder than she means to. He raises both hands and backs off, but his eyes say what she refuses to voice. Nobody gives out this much for free. Still, the relief is real. Groceries in the fridge. Metro card topped up. A knock at the door doesn't make her stomach twist anymore. One night, she stands at the tiny kitchen sink, washing dishes while the city glows outside the narrow window. Traffic hums far below, a soft, constant rush. She looks at her reflection in the glass, sleepy eyes, hair wrapped in a scarf, t-shirt too big from the thrift store, and she whispers, "Maybe this is what it feels like when things finally change." She wants that to be true so badly that she holds onto it like a lifeline. Down the hall, a shadow passes under the door gap. The building is old, sounds travel. But this is different. A pause, a soft scrape, and then silence. Tanisha frowns, dries her hands, and steps into the narrow hallway. When she opens the door, nobody is there. Just the draft of winter air curling up the stairwell, and the echo of footsteps already gone. She looks down and sees it. A plain white card, no envelope, no name on the front. Her fingers feel suddenly numb as she picks it up. The paper is heavier than it looks, thick and smooth, the kind of card that belongs to people who never have to explain themselves. On one side, in careful black strokes that look like they were painted instead of written, there is a single sentence. "Do you remember the woman whose tea you poured?" Her throat goes dry. The hallway seems to shrink around her. Behind her, Jamal calls from the living room, asking if everything is okay. She forces her voice to sound normal, tells him it's just some junk mail, all while her eyes stay locked on the ink. The letters feel alive, like they're staring back at her. She shuts the door slowly, turning the lock with a soft click, but the words follow her into the room, sit with her on the mattress, linger on the skin of her hands. Every good thing from the last few weeks rewinds in her mind and lands back at that white tablecloth, at that quiet older woman, at the man in the corner whose smile never reached his eyes. If a note like that slipped under your door after a streak of good luck, would you keep spending the money, or would you start packing a bag? The car door opens before she has time to think of a reason to refuse. One moment Tanisha is on the curb outside her building, keys in hand, tote bag dragging off her shoulder. The next, a long black sedan slides to a stop so close the wind from it rustles her coat. The driver steps out in a dark overcoat, nods once, and says her full name like he's checking it off a list. "Ms. Brooks. My employer would like a word." Every instinct screams to say no. To back up. To run upstairs and pretend she never heard him. But the memory of that white card sits heavy in her pocket, pressing against her palm. She glances up at the apartment windows where the light in Jamal's room burns blue from his game console. She thinks of the sudden money, the offers, the feeling of eyes on her even when she is alone. Saying no feels less like safety and more like stalling. "Who's your employer?" she asks. The driver doesn't answer, only opens the back door, revealing warm leather and shadows. The smell of something expensive, clean, sharp, nothing like the cheap air freshener in her hallway, floats out. It's the kind of car that never hunts for parking, never gets ticketed, the kind that moves through the city like it owns every lane. She slides in because she can't think of a sane way to do anything else. The door shuts with a soft, final sound. The city noise dulls, replaced by a low hum of the engine and the faint whisper of tires on wet streets. She clutches her tote in her lap, watching the familiar blocks peel away. Corner stores, nail salons, the bodega cat on Jamal's route home, one by one, they fall behind them like old photos. When the car finally slows, it's in a world she's only ever glimpsed on magazine pages and waiting rooms. An estate rises over the Hudson, all glass and clean lines, wide drive curving around a fountain that glows from within. The driver opens her door and leads her inside, through a lobby that smells of polished wood and quiet money. Security cameras blink red in the corners. No one asks her name. They already know. He waits by a window that eats up an entire wall, the city lights spread out behind him like a private constellation. No suit jacket now, just a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. A watch that probably costs more than her yearly rent. He doesn't turn right away. For a few seconds he just stands there, hands in his pockets, watching the skyline like he's checking on something he owns. "Tanisha Brooks. he finally says, tasting each syllable like a fact he's known for a long time. He looks over his shoulder, eyes catching hers, and in that moment she recognizes him fully, the man from the corner table, the faint smile, the calm that made everyone else nervous. Her mouth goes dry. "You sent the note," she says. He nods once. "My mother's wrist still stings when it rains." The words should sound like a threat. They don't. They land more like a data point, something he files away along with stock prices and street rumors. "You humiliated someone very important to me. I wanted to know why." She could lie. She could play small, apologize, beg. Instead, the same fire that made her tip water into that tea rises again. "Because people like her, like you, walk into rooms and make the rest of us feel like air," she says. "Like we only exist to carry plates and smile. I got tired of feeling invisible." He watches her closely, every tiny movement of her face reflected in his dark gaze. "And pouring water into her cup made you feel visible?" His tone isn't mocking. It's curious, sharp, like a scientist poking at a live wire. "It made me feel like I wasn't just taking it," she answers. Her hands tighten around the strap of her bag. "Even if it was stupid." Silence stretches between them. Outside, a boat moves along the river, its lights sliding across the glass. Kian's jaw works once, then stills. "You know who I am?" he asks. "Everybody at that club seems to," she says. "I heard enough whispers. The architect. The one people owe and never see coming." A hint of a smile touches his mouth again, but it's gone in a breath. "Then you understand what it means that you're standing here, instead of somewhere you can't crawl back from." His words hang in the air, heavy with things he doesn't need to spell out. Her throat tightens. "You going to fix that? Make it match the stories?" He shakes his head. "No. My mother believes true power is in what you choose not to destroy." He steps closer, stopping just out of reach. "I'm curious what you'd do with power if you had any." "I'd pay my bills and mind my business," she shoots back, but the answer feels too small even as she says it. He seems to sense that. "I have a position open," he says. "One of my boutique ventures. You would assist me directly. You'd see how things move when money, respect, and fear share the same table." His eyes never leave hers. "Consider it a test. A chance to see if you can carry more than a tray." Her heart slams against her ribs. This is insane. It sounds like the start of every warning story her mother ever told her about men with too much money and too little conscience. Yet the thought of going back to the velvet bow, of pretending nothing has shifted, feels impossible now. "What if I say no?" she asks. "Then the account stays open, the doors keep closing quietly, and eventually you learn what it costs to be remembered by the wrong people," he says. No anger. Just truth. "What if you say yes?" She pictures Jamal's face when he saw the paid tuition. The cracks in her ceiling. The way people's eyes changed when they thought she might have someone powerful behind her. Fear and pride wrestle inside her, wearing the same tired shoes. She takes a breath that feels too big for her lungs. "Fine," she says. "I'll take your test." Something shifts behind his eyes, a small satisfaction he doesn't bother to hide. As he turns back to the window, the city lights reflect over his shoulder like pieces on a board only he can read. Tanisha stands there, trying to steady herself, thinking she has bargained with a man she can outsmart if she stays sharp. What she doesn't see is the file already on his desk with her name on it, the quiet calls made weeks ago, the way every step she thought she took on her own has been guided by a hand she hasn't even begun to understand. She walks out that night believing she has just secured a wild opportunity. He watches her leave knowing he has just moved the most interesting new piece into his game. If you were in Tanisha's shoes, would you trust this offer as a lifeline, or see it as a cage with better lighting? The first thing she notices is the quiet. Not the thin, brittle quiet of broke apartments and thin walls, but a steady, padded stillness that says every sound is controlled. The elevator doors open onto a private floor, and the soft thud of her boots on the polished wood feels too loud. A man in a fitted black shirt stands near the entrance, arms folded. He's big, with sharp eyes that flick over her from hair to shoes in a single sweep. "Ms. Brooks," he says, accent thick, tone cool but not hostile. "I'm Malik. Security." It sounds less like a job title and more like a warning label. She nods, wiping her palms down the sides of her blazer. The blazer is thrifted but pressed, her best attempt at office ready, with the money she hasn't dared to touch. Malik steps aside and gestures her in. The office stretches out like something from a streaming series she used to binge on. Cracked screens, high ceilings, tall windows, art on the walls that looks real, not printed. A glass wall frames the city, the same view from the estate but sharper, closer, like they've moved from the balcony to the edge of the cliff. A woman in her 50s appears from a side door, neat gray bob, black dress, expression somewhere between housekeeper and aunt who runs the whole family. "You must be Tanisha," she says, her voice warm but steady. "I'm Ms. Cho. I keep this place standing." She takes Tanisha's tote before she can protest, hangs it on a sleek metal hook, and straightens the collar of her shirt with a quick, practiced touch. "He likes things a certain way. You'll learn." At a desk near the window, a younger assistant with long braids and thin gold hoops looks up from her laptop and gives Tanisha a quick, assessing smile. "I'm Dre," she says. "The one who knows how to fix the printer when it decides to act cute." Her tone eases some of the knot in Tanisha's stomach. If there are other black women here, maybe she isn't walking straight into a lion's mouth alone. Then he walks in, and the room rearranges around him without anyone moving a chair. Kian crosses the floor with an easy, controlled stride, a folder in one hand, jacket already off. Conversations taper without being told. Malik shifts his weight subtly by the door. Even the hum of the AC feels like it drops a notch. "Good morning, Ms. Brooks," he says, as if they are picking up a normal workday and not continuing a story that started with spilled tea and a dare. He gestures to a desk set up near his office door. It's nicer than any manager's desk at the Velvet Bow. Dual monitors, clean lines, a small plant that somehow is not dead. "This is you." Her first tasks are simple on paper: sort emails, flag certain names, schedule calls, learn which color means, drop everything, in his calendar, and which means move quietly. But the names in those emails light up in her brain like headlines: politicians, hedge fund partners, community leaders with public smiles and private agendas. She types, listens, watches. Every "yes, of course" into Kian's phone carries a second meaning she starts to hear beneath the words. Around noon, a tray appears on a low table in the lounge area: tea, coffee, small dishes. Ms. Cho moves with soft efficiency, placing everything just so. Lady Seo-Hwa steps out from a side door Tanisha hadn't even noticed before, dressed in pale blue, her presence as calm and sharp as it was that night at the Velvet Bow. Tanisha's stomach flips. For a second, all she sees is the flash of hot tea against that fragile wrist. She almost drops the pen in her hand. Ms. Cho glances over, expression unreadable, taking in the jolt. "Go," she murmurs. "It's better if you don't hide." So she walks over, legs a little shaky, and reaches for the teapot before anyone can stop her. Fingers steady this time, she pours jasmine into the porcelain cup, the steam curling between them. "No sugar. No lemon," she says quietly. "I remember." Lady Seo-Hwa looks up, eyes resting on her face for a long, measuring moment. The room fades at the edges, Malik near the door, Dre pretending not to eavesdrop, Kian watching from his office threshold. The older woman lifts the cup, inspects the clear, pale liquid, then takes a small sip. "You have a good memory," she says. No smile. No warmth. But no ice either. "I have a lot to make up for," Tanisha answers. Her voice doesn't shake. Lady Seo-Hwa sets the cup down with care. "We will see," she replies, then turns her gaze to her son, already moving on to another matter. To anyone else, it might seem like nothing. To Tanisha, it feels like a test she has barely passed with AD. The day stretches in small, sharp lessons. She learns the rhythm of the office, How Malik always seems to know who's about to knock before they do. How Dries slides her a sticky note with, "Don't put this one on hold," when a certain caller's name flashes on the screen. She notices that when Kian walks past her desk, he never crowds her, but the air shifts anyway, charged like just before a summer storm. On her phone, Jamal sends a string of excited texts about a mysterious campus support fund that just covered his book fees. "You know anything about this?" he asks. She stares at the message, then looks up to see Malik standing by the elevator, talking quietly into a small earpiece, eyes flicking to her brother's photo peeking out from her open wallet. A chill slides down her spine. If you stepped into a workplace where everyone seems to know more about your life than you ever told them, would you lean into the access? Or start planning an exit before it's too late? The office feels different after midnight. The city beyond the glass turns from hustle to hush, lights blinking off in waves, leaving only the constant glow of bridges and billboards. Tanisha sits at her desk, blue light washing over her face, the last of the staff long gone. Only two people remain, her and the man whose name opens doors and closes futures. "Coffee?" she asks, standing by the small machine. Her voice sounds small in the big, quiet room. "Tea," he says from his office, door half open. "Green. No sugar." She brings it in, sets the cup on a coaster, and starts to step back. His desk is spread with documents, maps, balance sheets, photos of properties marked in red pen. On one corner sits a worn black and white photograph of a boy standing in front of a building with peeling paint and a sign in a language she can't read. She catches the edge of it before he slides a folder over the image with an unconscious motion. "You always work this late?" she asks. "Always," he says. Then, after a beat, "Sleep is where people let their guard down. I prefer to stay awake." She leans against the doorframe, crossing her arms. "Sounds lonely." He looks up at her, the faintest hint of amusement in his eyes. "Says the woman who used to eat her dinner standing over a sink so the plates wouldn't pile up." Her breath catches. "You got somebody watching my kitchen now, too?" He doesn't answer directly. "Good assistants are hard to find," he says instead. "I like to know what I'm investing in." They fall into a strange rhythm on these late nights. He asks about her neighborhood, about what it feels like to count change at the register, and know that any mistake might mean no lights next month. She asks about the language in his contracts, the shell companies that own other shell companies, the reason he cares so much about some city council race in a district he doesn't even live in. "Power is not just money," he says once, tracing a line between two names on a page. "It's who returns your calls at midnight. And who never hears from you until it's too late," she shoots back. He glances up, caught off guard. For a second, he looks almost young, like the boy in the photo she only half saw. "Something like that," he says. He tells her small things about his father, the man who built the bones of the empire and then vanished into a story nobody ever tells the same way twice. How his mother clings to the word, respect, like it's armor. How he learned young that people will forgive almost anything if they think you are protecting them. She talks about Jamal, about their mama's grave with the cracked stone out in Queens, about growing up cleaning offices after school and watching other people's lives through smudged glass. "Respect," she says, "felt like a luxury item we couldn't afford." There are moments when the distance between them shrinks, not in any romantic way yet, but in something more dangerous, understanding. The late hour strips away some of his polish. Her sharp jokes soften when she sees the tired set of his shoulders, the way his fingers drum on the desk when he talks about people who cross lines they promised never to touch. One night, as she's packing up, her phone buzzes. It's Jamal, voice shaking. Some dude followed me from the train," he says. "Big guy, dark jacket. Every turn I took, he took. I ducked into the campus library, and when I came out, he was gone, but—" Her grip tightens. "Did you call campus security?" "Yeah. They said they'd keep an eye out." He snorts. "You know what that means." She hangs up, heart pounding, and walks straight to Kian's office. "My brother was followed tonight," she says, not bothering with a lead-in. He looks up from his screen, eyes sharpening. Where? She gives him the details, the station, the streets. She expects a lecture about staying calm, maybe a suggestion to file a report. Instead, he picks up his phone, says a few short words in Korean, then switches to English. Check his route. Tonight and the last week. Any face we don't recognize, I want it on my desk by morning. He hangs up before the person on the other end can reply. What did you just do? She asks. Ensured your brother gets home, he says simply. You don't like being watched. I understand. But he is part of your life. That makes him part of mine. And people in my orbit are expected to be protected. The word sits heavy between them. Protection sounds a lot like control when you've spent your life with no shield at all. She feels both safer and more trapped in the same breath. Later that night, while she pretends to sleep, her phone lights up with a text from Jamal. Weird. Saw a black SUV parked near the station when I came out the library. Dude who was following me earlier crossed the street, took one look, and dipped. You know anything about that? She stares at the message, thumb hovering over the screen. Out her own window, far below, a dark vehicle idles at the corner, a familiar shape now. Someone inside is just a shadow, head turning, always facing her building. If the price of safety for the people you love is letting someone like Kian watch every step they take, would you pay it? Or would you risk walking unguarded in a city that already proved it doesn't care if you disappear? The question hits her like a slap. Your mother. What did she teach you about respect? Lady Seo-Hwa asks, eyes on the steam rising from her cup, not on Tanisha's face. They are alone in the small sitting room off Kian's office, walls lined with old books and one long window looking down over the city. Tanisha hadn't even heard the older woman enter. One moment she was setting down a tray, jasmine tea, sliced fruit, tiny cookies that crunch like money. The next, that calm voice cut through the air, testing her without warning. The door is closed. Malik is outside. No witness. No help. Just the woman she burned and the past she never talks about. My mama taught me to say yes ma'am and no sir if I wanted to keep my job, Tanisha answers after a beat. But she also taught me that respect goes both ways. Otherwise it's not respect. It's fear. Lady Seo-Hwa finally looks at her. The gaze is steady, sharp, almost surgical. And who did not return that respect to you? She asks. The way she says it, it is not a kind question. It is a key, trying doors inside Tanisha's chest. Memories flash, managers snapping fingers, customers calling her girl, the landlord talking over her, campus staff signing Jamal's drop forms without once looking him in the eye. Her jaw tightens. A lot of people, she says. Too many to name. The older woman tilts her head. So you poured your anger into my cup, she says. Is that it? I poured my anger into the way you looked at me like I wasn't there, Tanisha replies. Her voice is low, but it doesn't shake. You didn't flinch at the burn, you didn't say a word, you didn't even blink. I've been invisible my whole life. That night I refused to be. Silence sits between them, thick as the carpet under their feet. Outside the door, the office hums softly. Inside, the air feels heavy. Lady Seo-Hwa lifts her tea, the same way she did at the velvet bow, takes a measured sip, then sets it down. You are proud, she says. Pride keeps some people standing. It pushes others off cliffs. Tanisha swallows. Do you want me to apologize again? I want to see who my son has brought into my house. The older woman answers. You stand in rooms you were not born into. You breathe air that was not meant for you. The question is whether you will choke on it or learn to change it. Her words land like a riddle and a threat in one. Tanisha feels heat in her chest, not just from anger but from something like shame. I'm here to work, she says carefully. To earn what I get. That's it. Work is never just work in our world, Lady Seo-Hwa replies. Everything is a signal. Who you defend. Who you embarrass. Who you stand beside when the knife is on the table. She reaches forward, her hand hovering for a second over the tea tray, then pointing calmly at Tanisha. Tell me, if one day you had to choose between your pride and your brother's future, which would you protect? The question punches the air out of her. Jamal's face flashes in her mind, laughing on the couch, backpack slung low, text about the man who followed him. The scholarship notice, the support fund, that saved him, all tied to Kian whether they said it out loud or not. My brother, she whispers. Always. A small, almost invisible shift crosses the older woman's face, like a box checked on an inner list. Interesting, she says. You answer faster than some men twice your age. She stands, smoothing her dress. My son trusts you enough to place you near his throat. I prefer to know the edge of the blade. As she reaches the door, she pauses. You remind me of someone we owe a debt to, she says quietly, more to herself than to Tanisha. Someone from long ago. Tanisha's head snaps up. Who? But the older woman only opens the door and steps out into the hall. Malik straightens. Kian looks up from his desk as his mother walks toward him, their eyes trading a conversation no one else can hear. Tanisha watches from the threshold, heart drumming, wondering what name just got stirred in that woman's memory, and what it has to do with her. Would you walk deeper into a family like this to uncover that hidden debt, or pull back before their secrets trap your own? And if this story has you locked in already, make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications, so you don't miss the next twist, and so your own thoughts can find their way into the comments, and maybe help someone else watching. Flashbulbs pop as she steps out of the car. For a second, the night goes white, cameras painting her in borrowed light. Tanisha feels fabric swish around her legs. Deep emerald dress, smooth and heavy, picked by a stylist Dre swore was doing this as a favor. Her heels click against the marble steps of the hotel where the Seo charity gala is unfolding, and every click sounds like a countdown she can't see. Shoulders back. You belong here, Dre whispers at her side, adjusting the thin bracelet on Tanisha's wrist. Malik moves ahead of them, scanning the crowd, his presence clearing a path without a word. Inside, the ballroom sparkles. Crystal chandeliers. White tablecloths. Men in tuxes and women in dresses that look like they cost more than her old car. People turn as they enter. Not all, but enough. Some eyes follow Kian first. Of course they do. His name is on the banner at the back of the room, tied to words like Community Initiative and Education Fund. Others track the woman walking half a step behind him, the black assistant in a dress that fits too well to be random. Whispers start. Tanisha feels them like hands on her back. She lifts her chin, remembers every time someone made her feel small, and decides in this moment she will not shrink. She greets donors with the smile she used at the velvet bow, but this time, when she says her name, she adds, I work directly with Mr. Seo on his urban projects. She watches the respect flicker in their eyes, even if it's just performance. On stage, a jazz band plays something smooth. Servers circulate with champagne. A senator shakes Kian's hand and holds on a second too long. A tech founder laughs too loud at a quiet joke. Lady Seo-Hwa glides through the room greeting people by name, wearing respect like a crown. Later, Kian takes the stage to thank everyone. His speech is short, clean. He talks about opportunity, about giving kids in hard neighborhoods a shot at futures beyond what they can see from their windows. He does not mention what those windows might also overlook. When he steps down, he nods toward Tanisha. You'll say a few words about the program from the inside, he says. They need to hear from someone whose life doesn't look like theirs. Her heart jumps. She hadn't planned on speaking. But the room is already turning to her, and backing down would feel like stepping out of the only doors that ever opened this wide. A mic appears in her hand. The lights burn hot on her face. She clears her throat. Good evening, she starts. Her voice sounds stronger than she feels. My name is Tanisha Brooks. A year ago, I was bussing tables and counting change to keep my lights on. Tonight, I help manage a fund that keeps students in school and food in fridges that used to be empty. People nod, charmed by the rise, the tidy arc. She could stop there. She should stop there. But something restless pushes up through her chest. She thinks of the night at the velvet bow, of Tian's skin, of eyes that refused to see her. She thinks of how fast this room would stop listening if they didn't think she was backed by the Seos. Thing is, she continues, folks like y'all don't always notice people like me unless we're holding a tray or opening a door. Some of y'all only show respect to the ones who bow in front of you. A low ripple moves through the crowd. Glasses pause halfway to lips. But you know what I've learned working here, she adds. Power is not just who stands on stage. It's who you step on to get up here. A slow chill moves across the room. On the edge of the crowd, Malik shifts his stance. Dree's eyes go wide. Up front, a donor frowns, not used to being addressed in a tone that isn't fully polished. Tanisha feels the heat of her own words, knows she is close to a line she cannot quite see. So, when we talk about giving back, let's be real, she says, trying to pull it back, but the edge is already out. Some people in this city only respect those who bow beneath them. The real test is whether you can respect the ones who stand up and look you in the eye. The last sentence hangs in the air like a dropped glass that hasn't hit the floor yet. Then the room reacts, not all at once but in waves, murmurs, forced laughs, somebody clapping too hard to make it feel okay. The band starts playing again a little too quickly, as if they were given a signal. The host thanks her and steers her off the stage. From the bottom step, she looks for Kian. He's near the side of the room, still in shadow, watching her. His face is unreadable, but his eyes are colder than she has ever seen them. No faint smile. No curiosity. Just a steady, flat gaze that locks onto hers and doesn't let go. In that single look, she understands. To the room, her speech was edgy, maybe a little ungrateful, but still salvageable. To him, it was something else, a shot fired with his name standing right beside her. Have you ever said one sentence too many in front of people who hold your whole future? If you were standing there under those bright lights, would you walk back your words, or double down and accept whatever storm was waiting? If you want to see what happens when pride and power clash in the harsh morning light, subscribe now, turn on your notifications, and tell someone in the comments if you've ever crossed a line you couldn't uncross. Her keycard blinks red. Tanisha presses it again, harder this time, like force will change the tiny light above the handle. Red. The office door that has opened smooth for months now stays locked. Behind it, she hears nothing. No phones, no printers, no low voices. Just the faint hum of air on the other side of money. System must be glitching, she mutters, more to herself than to the empty hallway. She knocks. No answer. Her stomach tightens. She pulls out her phone and tries her work email. The password loops back with an error. She calls the office line. It jumps straight to a machine that doesn't even list her extension anymore. When the elevator doors slide open behind her, she turns, expecting Malik or Dree, someone familiar. Instead, a younger guard she's seen only once steps out, expression polite and blank. Ms. Brooks? He asks. Yeah. My card. Your access has been updated, he says smoothly. You won't be needing this floor anymore. He holds out a small envelope with her name on it. The way he extends it, she might as well be signing for a package, not picking up the first piece of proof that her life just shifted again. Inside is a short note on letterhead that used to make her feel important. Today, it feels like ice. Position terminated. Restructuring. We appreciate your contributions. No signature line. No direct contact. Just a generic office number that rings and never picks up. Her phone buzzes. 3 messages stack on the screen in quick hits. The first, from the landlord. Rent adjustment notice. Need to discuss increased rate. Call ASAP. The second, from Jamal. They just pulled my scholarship. Said the funding source shifted priorities. What's going on? The third, from the event planner who'd booked her for 2 upcoming gigs. So sorry, Tanisha, client went a different direction. We'll keep you in mind for future events. It's like watching a building fall in slow motion. Brick by brick, everything that had been handed to her in the last few months is being quietly taken back. No loud crash. Just doors that no longer open, numbers that no longer work, promises that fade into busy signals. She steps outside into the weak daylight, the city noise suddenly too bright, too loud. Her reflection stares back from the glass front of the building, same face, same hair, but the confidence that had started to live in her eyes is already slipping. She thinks of every time she stood a little taller because she knew Kian's name was attached to her email. Every time a room tilted in her favor because people believed she belonged to his world. Now the tilt is gone. The ground feels uneven. She goes home to the buzz of a fridge that sounds louder than usual and mail stacking under the door. Bills marked urgent. Notices stamped in red. Jamal sits on the couch, laptop open, eyes wide with worry. They said the donor who set up the fund pulled out, he says. Did I do something wrong? The guilt hits harder than any debt notice. You didn't do anything, she says, voice rough. You were just in the way. That night, after Jamal goes to bed, she sits at the wobbly kitchen table with a stack of paper and a lighter. Her hands move slow as she writes. No rage. No begging. Just the truth. She thanks them for the chance they gave her, admits the ways she overstepped, refuses to pretend she didn't know this was always a bargain with teeth. She signs her name with the same hand that once tipped water into an old woman's tea. Then she pulls out the photograph she found in a forgotten folder weeks ago, Lady Seo-Hwa holding a small boy in front of a plain building, both of them caught between smiles and something harder. On the corner of the photo, a faint stamp from a center in Busan, barely visible until she held it up to the light. For reasons she can't fully name, this image has sat in her mind since the day she saw it. She takes the lighter, lets a small flame kiss the edge of the photo, just enough to curl it and leave the corner blackened. She blows it out before the faces burn. A thin line of smoke twists up and disappears into the peeling paint above her head. She slides the picture into the envelope with the letter. On the front, she writes one last thing in a tight, steady hand. For the woman whose tea I poured. No return address. No explanation. Just that. In the morning, she walks to the post box on the corner, the winter air cutting her cheeks. Her fingers linger on the metal slot for a second longer than needed. Then she lets the envelope fall, listening to it land with a soft, final sound. If someone shut every door they once opened for you, would you still send them one last piece of your heart? Or vanish without a word and let them wonder? If this moment hit you in your chest, make sure you're subscribed with your notifications on, and share in the comments if you've ever had to walk away from power to save yourself. The envelope is waiting on the silver tray when Lady Seo-Hwa walks into the sitting room. No return name. No markings. Just her address written in a hand she does not recognize at first. The morning light spills across the floor, quiet and cold. She opens it with the same care she uses for everything. The letter comes first. She reads it once, then again, absorbing the rhythm of the words. A young woman explaining herself without begging, admitting wrong without pretending she wasn't pushed, choosing to leave before she is fully thrown. There is something familiar in the way the sentences bend around pride. Then the photograph slides into her palm. For a moment, the room blurs. It is her, 20, maybe 30 years younger, holding a little boy whose eyes are too serious for his soft face. They stand in front of the old building in Busan, the adoption center that smelled like boiled rice and bleach and fear. Her thumb brushes the blackened corner where the flame kissed it. The faint stamp shows through the smoke mark like a ghost. Kian steps in without knocking, phone still in hand, mid-sentence with someone who thinks they are important. He stops when he sees the look on his mother's face. I'll call you back, he says shortly, ending the call before the other voice can respond. What is it? She doesn't answer. Instead, she holds out the photo. He takes it, fingers going still as he sees his own tiny face staring back at him from another lifetime. For a second, the careful man he has built himself into flickers, and the boy he used to be looks out through his eyes. I remember that day, he says quietly. You were arguing with the director about paperwork. I was holding onto your sleeves so tight you told me I'd leave marks. You did, she answers, a small, distant smile touching her mouth. I wore them like jewelry. His gaze shifts to the burn edge. Who sent this? A girl with too much pride and not enough safety, she says. The one from the velvet bow. The one you pulled into our house. She sent a letter. He reads it in silence, jaw tight. The words hit harder than most threats he's faced. Not because they promise action, but because they refuse to cling. She is walking away. Not disappearing into some grave he digs, not clinging to the edge of his world. She is stepping off, wounded but standing. Then he sees it, the tiny crest stamped on the bottom corner of the photo, half covered by the burn. A logo he has not seen in decades, from the adoption center's files, from the forms his mother kept locked away. It matches the faint image he once noticed on an old ID card he saw slip from Tanisha's wallet, a name underneath that matched her mother's. His breath catches. Busan's social care home, he murmurs. Her mother worked there. Lady Seo-Hwa inclines her head. She reminded me of someone, she says. Now I remember who. The young woman who used to sneak extra food to the children with hollow eyes. The one who argued with the staff when they scolded you for crying too loud. She was fired for causing trouble. I gave her a small envelope of cash the day we left. Her name was Brooks. The room feels smaller. The city outside, with all its tall buildings and loud deals, shrinks to a point. That center, that day, that woman, this girl. All the years between fold like paper. So while she was cursing rich people who never cared, Kian says slowly, she was aiming at the son of a woman her own mother once tried to protect. Aim is rarely clean when pain is passed down, his mother replies. She struck where she could see. Not where the true Saturday. He looks back at the letter, at the steady lines, at the way she signs her name like she owns at least that much. His anger from the gala, sharp, cold, righteous, doesn't disappear. But something slides next to it, a weight he doesn't have a word for, a kind of understanding that feels like sand under his feet. What will you do? Lady Seo-Hwa asks. You could close this chapter. Let her learn her lesson far away. Or you could pull her back in and teach her what it means to stand near real fire. He doesn't answer right away. He walks to the window, photo in hand, looking out over the river where the city runs like a vein through both their lives. Somewhere out there, Tanisha is probably sitting at her wobbly table, believing that sending this photo was the last tie between them. He knows better. The story just shifted. If you uncovered a link like this between your past and the person who just walked out of your life, would you cut it clean, or follow it back to see what else has been hidden from you? If this twist surprised you, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and tell someone in the comments if you believe people are truly strangers, or just carrying pieces of each other's history without knowing it. She spots him before he sits down. The bell over the coffee shop door gives a tired jingle, and there he is, no entourage, no suit jacket, just a dark coat and the same watch that once glinted under ballroom lights. For a second, Tanisha thinks she's imagining him. This place is nothing like his world. The tables wobble. The floor squeaks. The barista is arguing with the espresso machine. He orders nothing. He just walks straight to her table and takes the chair across from her like he has done this 1,000 times. You picked an interesting place, he says, glancing around. It's neutral, she answers. Too broke to be yours. Too public for you to make me disappear. A corner of his mouth twitches. If I wanted to make you disappear, this would not stop me. There's no threat in his tone, just fact. But that's not why I'm here. She folds her arms over her chest. Then why? You already cut me off from everything tied to you. Jobs, contacts, my brother's scholarship. Message received. He studies her, really looks. The tired lines under her eyes. The stubborn set of her jaw. You walked out before I could finish deciding, he says. That was new. Was I supposed to wait around and beg? She shoots back. You studied me long enough to know that's not my style. He nods once. I read your letter. He places the burned photo on the table between them, the scarred edge facing her. And I recognize this. Her gaze drops to the stamp. The crest that matches the one on her mother's old work badge. You went through my things? I went through my life, he says. And found your family in it. He tells her about the center in Busan, about the young staff member who argued for him when nobody else bothered, about the small envelope of cash his mother pressed into that woman's hands. He describes a laugh he half remembers, a soft humming in the hall at night when he cried himself to sleep. As he talks, Tanisha feels her chest go tight. She has heard those stories, in pieces, from her mother, the child who left, the rich family, the job she lost. Her name was Denise Brooks, Tanisha says quietly. She came here with nothing but a picture of that boy and a promise she made to herself that her own kids would never feel as unwanted as he did. Her eyes lock on his. You're telling me the man who ripped my life apart is the same boy she still prayed for? He doesn't flinch. I'm telling you the woman you insulted at the Velvet Ball once tried to keep your mother from getting fired. And that the boy you poured your anger on grew up in a house built on debts you never knew existed. The truth lands between them like a middle point on a line they both thought ended a long time ago. So what now? She asks, voice low. You called me here to make me choke on guilt? To tell me I hit the wrong target? I called you here because I had a choice, he says. I could treat you like any other person who embarrassed my family in a public room. Or I could acknowledge that the only reason I survived the first part of my life was because women like your mother refused to look away when I cried. She blinks hard. Behind the counter, someone drops a spoon. Milk hisses. The world keeps moving, unaware that 2 lives are being rewritten over lukewarm coffee air. You think that erases what you did? She asks. You lifted me up just to see how I'd move. You pulled my brother into your orbit, then cut the cord the second I put your name in a sentence you didn't like. Respect isn't a game. I know, he says. That's why I'm here instead of sending another note under your door. He leans forward, elbows on the table. You want the truth? You scared people who are used to owning every room. That gala speech? You said out loud what they pay me to keep quiet. I couldn't let that slide with no response. But I also couldn't ignore the fact that you are exactly the kind of person my mother and your mother tried to build the world for. She lets out a shaky laugh. So which is it? Am I a problem or a project? Neither, he says. You are a mirror. You show people what they don't want to see. He pauses. Including me. The honesty stuns her more than any threat would have. For the first time, he looks less like the untouchable architect, and more like a man standing on a bridge between 2 lives, unsure which one will hold. I can restore your brother's funding, he says. No strings. His past should not be the weapon used every time you and I clash. And me? She asks. That depends on what you want. He doesn't sugarcoat it. You can walk away. Completely. I won't block you from work. I won't follow you. I'll make a few calls to clear the quiet warnings I've already spread. He takes a breath. Or you can come back in a different way. Not as someone under me, but as someone who understands where I came from and isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. She stares at him. You offering me a job or a conscience? Maybe both, he says. The idea of stepping back into his world makes her skin prickle. The power, the eyes, the endless watching. But the thought of walking away knowing their histories are tied, pretending he is just another rich man, feels cheap now. Her anger is still there, but it has a new shape. Respect, she says slowly, means you don't get to pull my strings when I talk about you in rooms you don't control. He nods. And it means you don't use my name as a shield while cutting at the hands that hold it up. They sit there, measuring each other across the scratch table, 2 kids from the same old building now wearing very different armor. The world outside the window rolls on, buses, cabs, people with their own quiet battles. I don't want a fairy tale ending with you, she says finally. I don't want to pretend we're some perfect team fixing the city. I want my brother safe. I want my work to matter. And I want to be able to look you and your mother in the eye without feeling like I sold my soul or wasted my hurt. That, he says, is the first honest contract anyone has offered me in years. She reaches out, touches the edge of the burned photo, then pushes it back toward him. Keep that, she says. Remember who helped you before you had a name people feared. Remember who you almost crushed because you forgot that pain doesn't belong to one side of the table. He slips the picture into his coat pocket, over his heart. And you remember this, he replies. Revenge would have been easy. Forgiveness costs more. You're not the only one paying today. They stand. No handshake. No hug. Just a quiet nod, an understanding that does not fix everything but makes the next step possible. As Tanisha walks out into the cold air, she feels no magic weight lift from her shoulders. Bills still wait. Work still needs to be found. But somewhere in the city, a man who could have destroyed her chose instead to sit in a cheap chair and face the hurt straight on. That choice doesn't erase the damage. It does change the story. The fatal mistake was never just the tea, or the speech, or the pride. It was believing only one side knew what it meant to be disrespected, to be small, to be scared. In the end, both of them learn that real power is not in how hard you can hit back, but in how carefully you choose not to. If this story left you thinking about the times you chose revenge over understanding, or the moments you wish someone had chosen mercy for you, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story that might help you see your own life clearer. And drop your thoughts in the comments. Your experience could be the one that gives someone else the courage to turn hurt into something stronger than payback.